Hi everybody! As it was so much fun last time, I thought today I'd try randomizing things a little bit again. So you can see I've brought up my random number generator there up on my little tablet. And for a start, I thought I'd randomize an issue of Colouring Heaven to be working in. Maybe it'll pick one that I haven't already worked in, I don't know. But I'll start with that and see where we go from there. Maybe pick the supplies and the colour scheme like I did last time. But we'll see which issue of Colouring Heaven we'll land up with first. So the first one that I actually have was 56, if I remember right. And the maximum now, because we're actually a month ahead, would be 120. So we'll minimize that and generate. And my issue is 113. So there we go. There'll be a little bit of a cut here while I go off and find issue 113. Hopefully it's one that I do like, but be back in a second. There'll be a little bit of a cut there as I've had to go and look through my collection for issue 113, and it's this one, The Little Mermaid Special by Fabiana Trere. So this will be quite interesting because most of the pictures in here are pretty detailed, full page pictures. So it'll be interesting to see which page I do actually pick to do here. So we'll go back to the random generator if I can zoom in without having to cut. There we go. And let's mark in the pages. I have actually coloured one page in this magazine. That's number 20, I think. So if we do draw number 20, then I'm going to end up having to re-roll. But we're doing from 1 to 40 to see which page number we're going to be doing. Oops, forgot to... Oh, 37. Okay, page number 37. So that should be interesting. There we go. There might be another little jump. I had to quickly adjust the brightness, but I promise you I am not cheating with this. We're still on page 37. I am not cheating at all. So this is the page that we've actually drawn to be colouring in. So that's interesting. As I said, it's a pretty detailed page. So I'm hoping that we get some nice art supplies to be colouring that one in with. So let's put our picture to one side for a minute there. Here we are with our list of art supplies here. And you'll see if you've watched last time, you'll see I have added in acrylic markers at the bottom there. That's another little thing that I could maybe use because I have been using my acrylic markers and quite enjoying it. And if there has been another little cut there, it's because I knocked off the brightness as I was swapping over my pictures. I'm not cheating, I promise you guys. This is all being randomly generated. We can see there we're still on page 37 being picked. So for the art supplies, we're generating from 1 to 7. And we're generating 2 art supplies and watercolour. Okay, number 3 we can see there is watercolour. And I picked 2 of these in case I end up with something that's really hard to do a whole page with. I do pick 2 different art supplies to be using, so I will go again. And 5, paper collage. Watercolour and paper collage. Oh my goodness, this is going to be interesting. And again, the eagle-eyed among you may notice another little list I've written at the bottom there, just for fun. Let me just mark before we go much further that we did pick watercolours and what was it? Paper collage. Oh, this is going to be interesting. Okay. I have written another list there at the bottom for embellishments. I thought maybe it might be fun to choose an embellishment to use just the one from this list. I've written down there are 6 choices there, so if I needed to I could just use a normal dice, a d6 to be rolling here. But I've written down number 1 is washi tape, number 2 is glitter glue, number 3 is stickers, number 4 is metallic Sharpie or gel pen or paint, number 5 is stick on crystals, and number 6 I can choose what embellishments to be using there. I can pick from any of them. So for this we're going from 1 to 6. And I've done that completely wrong. We need a 1 there. Okay, from 1 to 6. Number 2, glitter glue. So I can use glitter glue, watercolour, and paper collage. Oh my goodness, this is going to be interesting. Let's go for our colour scheme now. So there will be a little jump where I clear away all this stuff, but you can see there how we're actually leaving it, and it will be exactly the same when I get back. Alrighty, back again with my book of colour palettes there, and we're going to try and generate a colour palette to be using for this picture. So let's zoom us in. And I think last time we figured out that our minimum page number was 18, our maximum was 143, so hopefully we will get a page with colour combinations on them. And last time I did realise once I actually coloured the picture, there is only 4 colour palettes on each page, as the first 2 are just variants of each other, so I'll be choosing 1 to 4 if we do get a page with colour palettes on it. So this is page 95. Awesome. Let's look what we have on page 95. Zoom us out again. Page 95. 95 is this one here. Oh, that's interesting. A couple of these at the bottom here might work quite well with mermaids. So let's see what we actually turn up with here. From 1, these first 2 here are just variations of each other. You see that one there does have the colour palette down the bottom, but this one just says variation because that's using the same colours as are actually there. So we are choosing from 1 to 4. Number 4, so that would be the last one, this one here. Okay, that's going to be interesting to try and find some glue, some glitter glue in those colours. Not brilliant colours to be trying to find in watercolour either. Paper collage, I could probably get away with quite a lot of that, finding those colours, but let me zoom in so you can see what we're actually working with there, hoping that this camera is picking them up nicely. We have a kind of a light sienna brown, we have the teal blues, we have definitely an olive green this time, definitely more of a green, and we have that light kind of very light olive, or is it a sort of golden yellow? Quite hard to tell with that one. I could pick it out of my pencils, but with watercolour and paper collage might be a little bit tricky. And we have the black. So yeah, I can bring in the black there, so this is going to be an interesting colouring session. Okay, I've cleared the decks a little bit here so I can bring in my actual watercolours, and I thought this might be a good chance to try out some new watercolours that I've bought from B&M here in the UK. These are the Deco Time watercolour paints because these colours seem to fit in quite nicely with that colour palette, or some of them do. So I figured it might be a good time to actually try those out, see what those are like, have a bit of a play around with those. So let's see if we can find some colours that match in with this colour scheme we've been drawn here. See what these colours are actually looking like. That's the first colour I've picked out. Then we have the teal kind of green. I might need to mix that one, so we'll skip over it for now. Then we have an olivey green. So there's alocasia, I think might fit in quite nicely for that one. Then we have this kind of green gold colour, very, very light olive, or sort of a green gold colour. So maybe almost gold, that one there could fill in for that one. Of course we have the black, and I may need, if I'm going to stick with that colour, I may need to cheat a tiny little bit and bring in some gouache paint, because I'm pretty sure I have this pretty much the same colour in gouache paint, so I might cheat and bring in some gouache paint. Let me just grab that a second. So here we go, this is the colour I was thinking. This is marine blue, and yes, I know the tube is looking pretty beaten up there. I will be using this one fairly thinned down, so I'm using it as a watercolour rather than thickening it up and making it pretty opaque and using it as a gouache. I will keep it as a watercolour. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've swatched out all the actual watercolours here and the gouache, the kind of teal gouache that I'm planning to use, and I found that the brown that I picked out is a lot more of a pinkish colour than an actual brown, so I've gone ahead and substituted that one with one of my W.H. Smith's watercolours, this burnt sienna. And this one, the burnt sienna, gives a lot more of a brownish kind of orange colour, which is what we're aiming for from this colour scheme here. Here we are, zoomed in a little bit closer on our mermaid's picture now, and I thought that this time, instead of going for the fantasy, more unnatural skin tones, I could maybe bring in the burnt sienna, which would be this colour here. I could bring in the burnt sienna for the actual skin tone, maybe try getting a couple of shades of that by adding different levels of water. This paper doesn't take watercolour super well, so we would have to let the layers dry before we actually go in and put more different layers of watercolour on top. For the paper collage, I was thinking maybe to collage in this kind of sarong skirt she's got going on here, and maybe bring in a sky, find a nice sky in a book, or maybe even a landscape with some sea that I can put in down the bottom here as well. But that's the plan for now. Use the watercolours for the main part of the picture here, and then bring in the paper collage for the clothes and the background. Then I can add some glitter as and when I can find places to actually add it. But for now, I'm going to try and colour in this skin tone with the light burnt sienna here. And this paper doesn't work, as I said, super well with watercolour, so it's quite hard to go in and play with the colour before it dries. You can try blending out a little bit before it does dry, but it is very hard on this paper. It's not actually made for watercolour, so it's quite hard to get all the washes and the nice blobby effects that I do like to have going on with my watercolour. So I'm going to go ahead and colour in this skin on these ladies. I'm going to possibly have the light coming from the right in this picture to give me some kind of plan to aim for where my shadows and highlights are going to be happening. And I'm going to try and leave the white of the paper coming through. For this hand here, we do want that to look as if it's coming forward, closer to us, so we do want to have quite a lot of contrast with the highlight and the shadows there, so I'll try and leave quite a lot of that white paper showing there. As there is quite a lot of skin to be coloured in this picture, it's all going to be this same colour. I'm going to do all my ladies the same colour, give them the black hair. But as there is a lot of skin to be colouring in this picture, and it's pretty much more of the same as you've just seen, one layer of this burnt sienna paint. This is the W.H. Smith watercolour. Just one layer of that, blending out as much as I can with the limits of the paper there before we come back in with more layers later. So I'm just going to go ahead and colour in the rest of this skin and then maybe get back to you when I'm done. There's our first layer of skin tone done with the burnt sienna. I have had to give all my ladies the same skin tone, unfortunately, because we are working with such a limited palette. So I'm planning to give them all the same colour hair as well, and I'm going to be doing that with the black. I've got a slightly more detailed brush here to maybe start putting in the hair a little bit. I'm going to try and put in a few strand lines with these fine brushes to make it look like we have got some hair going on here. Maybe I'll be daring and try and add in a little bit of that aqua blue while the paint is wet to see if we get any nice watercolory blobby effects going on. I'm doubting it because this paper is not the best, but we'll see. Just to show the blue highlights in her hair, maybe. I'm not entirely sure if that will work going ahead, but just as a little bit of an experiment. Why not, as they say. So let's go ahead and give all these ladies at least the first layer of the black hair. We can go back in afterwards, add some more layers, but I want to make sure each layer of this watercolour is drying between each coat because, yeah, the paper is not the best for taking the watercolour. It's definitely not dedicated watercolour paper. It takes it okay. I'm not saying it's terrible, but you don't get much time to actually play with the colour and blend it out a little bit like I'm doing here before the paint does soak into the paper. And the paper does buckle. I think I did mention that, but yeah, this paper does buckle. So that's the kind of thing I'm doing. I'm going to be adding in a few kind of strand lines with my finer brushes, going in and blending out a little bit with the water to soften things out a little bit. I might carry on with the kind of teal blue highlights there. I might not, depending how I like that when it starts to dry. But because it's not the most interesting thing to watch, most of the time when I'm basing, it's not the most interesting thing to watch. It's just lots of the same. So I'll catch up with you once I've done the first layer on all the ladies' hair, and we should be able to go ahead and do a second layer on the skin. There we go, I've gone ahead and filled in the first layer of the black for all these ladies' hair, just the same as I showed you here, except I haven't gone ahead and put any highlights in yet with that blue. I'm still deciding whether I actually like that or not. But I've gone ahead and just done all the black, just the same as I showed you here by doing the strand lines and going in with the water to shade it out a little bit. Over this side of the page is where my light will be coming from, so I've kept things fairly light over this side. A few more highlights to try and make it look as if the light is coming from that direction. The next part I'm going to move on to is to colour in the jewellery. And I think for the gold colour, I could just be a little bit cheaty and go in with that yellow ochre. But the colour in the colour scheme that we picked out of the book is a lot more of a light olive colour. So I'm going to try, I'm not sure quite how successful I'm going to be with it, but I'm going to try adding a little bit of the green that we did have. I'm going to add a little bit of that green to the yellow ochre that we have, even though that is called almost gold. It's not almost gold at all. So I'm going to try adding a little bit of this green, if we can see here. I'm picking up a little bit of this green, and I'm going to try adding it to the yellow ochre. Maybe not quite that much. I'm going to try adding that to the yellow ochre because the colour in the colour scheme is a lot more of a greener sort of gold. And as we did actually draw both of these colours in the colour scheme. I'm hoping this isn't cheating too much. There we go, that's looking a lot more, I think, like the actual colour that we have in our colour scheme. This sort of greenish gold, maybe a light sort of khaki, light olive, very light olive green. So I'm going to go with that, I think, and paint in all the jewellery. Again, leaving some highlights. That's a lot better. That's a lot more like the colour we actually have in the book, I think. Leaving white on the side where the light would be hitting it. There's the first layer of all the gold done there. And I did go ahead and add a few more little teal highlights into some of these ladies' hair, just so this one didn't look so odd over there all by itself. I've added a few more. And for the clothing, for this kind of sari sarong thing here, I'm thinking of bringing in some collage there. And for this lady's tail here, I was thinking of maybe mixing the blue and the green. I'm hoping this is her tail. I'm guessing it is. I think all these three ladies here are mermaids, so this would be a tail. I'm thinking of mixing the blue and the green, maybe. See if I can get those to mix together on the paper. I'm not sure how well it will work. To give a kind of shimmery mermaid tail sort of effect, I was hoping. Let's see if we can get those to kind of blob together a little bit. Possibly not, because the paper isn't entirely made for watercolour. Try and dot a little bit to give a kind of scaly mermaid tail effect. And we want this lady, I think this is Ariel from The Little Mermaid. I think we want her to be standing out from all her friends there. So I'm going to give these ladies, I'm going to give her a green for the top. Again, we're trying to work with the area the light is coming from, so the darker sides would be away from the light. Okay, and for Ariel herself, in the middle there, I was thinking of bringing in the teal kind of ocean blue sort of colour for her t-shirt or top there. Again, will be darker over this side, away from the actual light. And I'm still using the same technique, just painting in the rough kind of areas of shadow and then coming in with some clear water to maybe blend it out a little bit. And the paper has started to actually buckle somewhat now. There we go. I will be allowing myself the white gel pen, as I did on the last picture. I did allow myself the white gel pen to come in and do a few highlights. I think once we've come in with those, we'll be looking a little bit better. But then this is still the first layer, the base layer, if you will, of the watercolour. We are going to be coming in with further layers on top. We need to come in and do their eyes with a black. We do have actually black watercolour. Should be able to do those with, because the pupils aren't actually drawn in. Instead of cheating and trying to bring in some silver paper for this blade here, I've mixed a bit of black in with my aqua blue to give the darker shadows. But as this blade is supposed to be reflective, kind of a reflective silver, we could bring in a little bit of that skin colour that would be reflecting into there. I'm not sure if that will actually work, but we'll go with that for now. And now, as the skin is most likely to be dry, I'm going to go in and add a few more shadows with the burnt sienna, trying to get as much shading and stuff done with the actual watercolour as I can, because we are limited with our art supplies. The only other art supply we have is paper collage, really. So I want to try and get as much detail as I can with watercolour, even though it isn't the most detailed of medium. And for the rest of the areas of shadow, I'm just adding in some more, slightly thicker this time, paint, I think, and blending out a little bit with the water. Just anywhere I think needs a little bit of extra shading, a bit more depth. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a few more shadows with that skin colour for now. Then I'll move on to do the same with the hair. Those skin tones are looking a lot better now, so I'm going to bring in this green to do this jewel on her forehead here. And I'll add in some shadows to the green areas while the colour's on my brush while I'm thinking about it pretty much. I'll add in these layers of shadows and then I'll go in and colour their hair. But the skin tone is looking a lot better now. I'm kind of happy with that, how that's going. I think once I come in with some white gel pen highlights, we'll be motoring with that now. Okay, that's all looking pretty good, I think. So I'll go in and add a few shadows to their hair, a few more strand lines. And again, this is just going to be more of the same, just going in and adding more extra layers of the black onto the hair there, just to add in a few more shadows, deepen the colour, add in some strand lines. So I'll catch up here once I've done all these ladies' hair, and then we can move on to do the gold. There we go, that's looking a lot better again. Now I've gone ahead and put another layer of colour into the hair. I have added in a few more of the blue highlights as I'm starting to go, I like those. And I did add a little bit of the blue into the gold here on this lady's kind of headpiece, because I thought that might look as if the gold is reflecting the colours that surround it, and I think that's worked quite well. So I'm going to add a few little dots of maybe the colours that surround this gold into the gold, so it looks as if it might be reflecting. She is crying here as well, so I'm going to add a little bit of the blue onto these tears to make that a little bit more obvious, and I will go in with some glitter glue down there as well. And just while I'm thinking about it, I'll bring in the skin tone again for their eye colour fairly thickly. Although if we're trying to stick with realistic colours, then the blue, the aqua blue, could also be brought in for an eye colour, so why not? Just to have a little bit of fun. Moving on to the jewellery again now, I'm going to try coming in with a darker layer of this kind of greenish gold. Okay, I've done with the jewellery pretty much, I think now. And for the lips, I decided to experiment a little bit. I have mixed together a little bit of this olive green with the burnt sienna here to try and get a more neutral, less warm colour. And this is what we've kind of ended up with here, so I'm not sure if that will actually work as a shade for their lips, but we'll give it a go. Yeah, I think we can work with that. Just quickly add some shading to Ariel's shirt. Time for the white gel pen now. I'm going to go in and add a few of my normal wire highlights. Here we are a couple of days later. I've gone ahead and finished off all the wire highlights now, trying to keep them mainly towards this side of the page, as this is where I think my light will be coming from in the picture, and I think that's looking okay so far. So it's time to move on to the actual paper collage part of the picture now. And what I've decided to do, I'm not sure I mentioned in the beginning, but what I've decided to do is to find some pattern paper to do this lady's kind of sarong wrap skirt here. And then I'm going to try and bring in a picture from a book to replace most, if not all, of the background there. I think I found a picture that will work. I'll bring that in a little bit later and show you. But first of all, I'm going to do this lady's skirt. The pattern that I have picked out matches as well as I possibly could. I couldn't find one that was quite the same shade of teal green as we do have there. This is the closest that I could find. And this one is from a book of origami paper, and I can't for the life of me remember where I actually got this from. That's the book there. It's called Craft Sensations Origami Super Stack, and this is a page that I've picked out. So I'm going to go ahead now and trace out the shape of the lady's skirt onto this paper, so I can cut that out and stick that actually on top of the colouring. And I think I'm maybe going to be cheating a very tiny little bit with this, because if I just stick the paper on top of the skirt there with no lines or anything, it's going to look really flat and a bit odd. So I'm going to be bringing in a fine line pen in black just to do all this lining, and I'm going to actually bring in a black and a white colour pencil. I have here the black Polychromos and the white Prismacolor to maybe add a little bit of shading to this paper here before we go ahead and stick that down, because I think that might help make it look a little bit more three-dimensional, make it fit in a little bit better with the picture. So I'm going to go ahead now and trace off the pattern for that skirt. I'm going to mark that out on the tracing paper, transfer that shape onto the origami paper, shade that in so we can stick that on top there. I'm not sure if that is showing up super well on the camera there, but I've transferred the shape of her skirt onto this origami paper. So I'm going to go over these lines with the black fine liner now. This is a Unipin fine liner in 0.1. I'm going to go over all the line art and try and match what we actually have here. The lines on the inside, obviously it doesn't matter if those are slightly different because that will be all covered up anyways. But I'm going to try and keep these lines around the outside as similar as I possibly can so that when we stick this onto the top, most of that line art will be covered. So I'm just going to go ahead and try and copy this line art onto this paper now, and I'll catch up with you again in a little bit. And there we go, I've gone around most of the line art there. I haven't gone around the line art here or here because that isn't really needed. The line art on the page should be showing through if we cut it out correctly. But before I do cut out that skirt, I'm going to try adding a little bit of light and shade with my coloured pencils, just so that the skirt itself, I'll just flip over our page so I've got a clean piece of card there to be resting on. I'm just going to try and add a little bit of shade with these coloured pencils to give a little bit of shape to the skirt there. I don't think this paper will stand to be shaded with watercolour, or I would probably try and shade with the watercolour a little bit there. So I'm going to add a little bit of shade with these colour pencils, add a few white highlights to try and match it in with the rest of the actual picture. I'm going to try and keep the shading looking as if the light is coming from the right, so I'm going to add my shadows kind of accordingly to that, and then I'll catch up with you once I finish with the skirt. Few white gel pen highlights, and I think we should be good to go. Again, mainly down this right hand side because that's where my light will be coming from. And even though this paper is collaged on, we do want it to look as if it is part of the picture, so I'm hoping the white gel pen highlights will kind of accomplish that. All done now. I think that might fit in quite nicely, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this out and see about sticking it onto our actual picture. That's not fitting too badly at all there, I don't think. With a little bit of minor adjustment, a little bit of going over some of these thicker lines, I think we'll be able to get away with that. So I'll go ahead and stick that one down. Okay, that's all stuck down now, and you might notice that we do have a little bit of a mismatch here. I have gone a little bit down over the edges of the wave here with her skirt, but I think I can cover that with my background picture, and I'll show you that one now. This is the book that I found my background picture in. This is from a load of textbooks I've had for absolutely ages before the internet was a thing. These were down in the garage and I've dug these out. This one is called The British Isles, A Symphony in Colour. It's by Colour Library International. And this one has lots of nice pictures of in and around Britain. You can see there a few nice pictures of Britain there. This is one I actually used for when I did my pirate collage cow, that I used a picture for the background. And the one that I did pick out to maybe use for a background for these ladies is this picture here. This one here. And I'm hoping I can cut out this bottom here, kind of separate the picture, cut out this bottom part and have that come in as this wave at the bottom here, which will hopefully cover up this little bit of mistake we had going on there. So we can have that little bit of a border at the bottom and then bring in the sky for the sky at the top. So this is the picture I'm thinking of using. So I'll just bring in my cutting mat here. And as I said, what I'm hoping is that this piece along the bottom here, I can cut this out to make a little bit of wave spray there, maybe come in with the white gel pen to kind of imitate the line art we did actually have there with a little bit of a wave going on, and then move up this picture because it's slightly too short, but because we do have the ladies coming across the middle there, we can separate the picture out a little bit as long as we cover the bits of the background that need to be done. We can move that picture up a little bit so that we've got the sky coming in there and we can make a background for our picture. So I'm going to go ahead and trim off this part of the wave here. Try and keep this wave spray here into the actual picture because we want to keep the line art as much the same as we possibly can. So I've separated our picture now into two parts. We do have this bit with the sky and a few of the rocks there, which we'll be bringing in for the background at the top. And I've cut out this bottom part and tried to give a kind of a wave shape, sort of reminiscent of what we have going on here along the bottom. We're going to have to move that over very slightly so that we can cover up the line art that we want to be covered up. And I'm thinking that I can come in along the top here with a little bit of white gel pen, add a little bit of extra spray maybe. A few bits of foam kind of spraying off onto the ladies there to try and make this water look as if it is part of the picture. And then when I bring in the rest of the picture for the background, everything should hopefully all fit together. There's our waves all stuck down, so I'm going to go ahead and add some of this white gel pen along these edges. That's the kind of effect I was going for. I think that's working pretty well. So my idea now is to replace the rest of the background with this picture. So I'm going to go ahead and cut away all the pieces that I don't really want going on in the background there, so we can insert our picture in. So I'm going to replace this piece of card we have there with my cutting board, because this time we're actually going to be placing the collage paper underneath our colouring page. So we're going to need to cut away all these little bits here. There we go. Now we're coming on to the most difficult part, I think. I've cut around all the edges of our ladies there. You can see just leaving this part of the page connected with a tiny little border there because I couldn't really get right into the spine of the book. So what we're planning to do now is to bring in this background picture. And that surprisingly does cover a lot of the background that I actually cut out there. I think that might work really super well. And I'll bring in the background piece that I cut out just for a second to show that I did have to simplify a few of the edges. I cut off a few of these kind of wayward strands of hair there, but I'm planning, because I know where they are, having this background all in one piece, I can come in and draw those back in with pen. And I did realise as well that we do actually have some rocks here. I think these are supposed to be rocks rather than clouds along this side here. So having these rocks on the side of the picture is actually quite fitting. So I'm not really going to be too worried about trying to hide those. But what I think I might do is trim off a little bit of this edge of the picture so I can bring these rocks in a little bit more. This line here where it's cutting through the ladies, or in the background of the ladies it's cutting through there, that's looking a little bit awkward to me. So what I might do is trim off a little bit of this edge here. I'll measure how much we're missing there, trim off a little bit of that edge there, and then shove those rocks up a little bit so that our lady isn't looking quite so awkward in her placement, and I think we'll be good to go. I'll go ahead and stick that down. So I'll just trim off a little bit of the edge here. I think that's working slightly better there now. So I'm going to go ahead and stick our ladies down, giving them this seascape there for their background. I'm going to try and come and add in some of these bits that we ended up losing here. These bits of little flyaway strands of hair and stuff like that. I'm going to try and add those back in, again, to make the background look as if it's part of the picture and not, these ladies are not actually stuck on. So I'm going to try and get that as close as I can to the actual line art, although I won't be exactly the same. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be bringing in some washi tape to go around the outlines here. This does match in with the colours of the colour scheme we ended up with, but I think we need to be tidying up these edges here. And I'd rather bring in something that was the same kind of colour as the colour scheme we were going for, rather than bringing in a metallic Sharpie. We do have a little bit of a mistake with the cutting here as well, so I'm hoping the washi tape will cover that. So I'm just going to go ahead and give us a little frame with this green washi tape. Okay, I've gone around the edges there with a little bit of that green washi tape, just to neaten things off and make things look a little bit better there. And plus it helps to secure this side of the page to the actual magazine, as we didn't leave a very narrow strip there to be sticking down. But I think that's working pretty good now. So it's time to actually move on to the glitter glue now. I wanted to stick with the Dovecraft glitter glue. I do have some cheaper glitter glues in a wider selection of colours, but I wanted to stick to the Dovecraft glitter glue because the cheaper one is a lot waterier, and I think that might actually cause the page to buckle a little bit too much. So I've stuck to the Dovecraft glitter glue, and I've tried to pick colours that actually go in with the colour scheme. I've stuck to my clear one there, that is the diamond, I think that's called, or crystal. I've stuck to the clear one. I have a gold one, which I think will match in with the gold of the jewellery there. And I have a green, which isn't exactly the same kind of green as I've got going on with the clothes, but I'm just going to use this for the jewels in the little headband things there. Starting with the green, and yeah, I'm going to be using this for the jewels in their headbands, I think. There we go, that's a little bit of an embellishment there. I'm going to bring in the gold, I think just very lightly on the jewellery, on top of this gold jewellery, and just spread it a little bit so it's not so concentrated. And for the clear glitter glue, I like to use clear glitter glue, bring that in whenever I do water. So I'm going to try actually sticking this onto the collage paper, this magazine or book photo here. I'm going to add a little bit of this crystal glue to give a little bit of a sparkle to the water, and maybe to this mermaid's tail here as well, and Ariel's hair here, just for a little bit of fun. And there we go. I'm going to be calling it there, I think, so I will zoom us out so we can see the whole picture. There we are with the whole picture on the screen, and I think we've worked out pretty well, considering that once again we used the random generator to pick the image for us, and the materials and the colour scheme. I did end up actually bringing in a black pen to bring back some line art I ended up losing through the collage process. That's something I would normally do anyway, either a fine liner or the black biro if I was using it on top of collaged paper. I also brought in some washi tape. I do usually end up having to tidy up my edges when I do use paper collage in an image, so I think this washi tape was a good solution for tidying up those edges and for more securely fastening this page actually into the book, because we did end up losing quite a lot of the actual page itself there to replace it with the background, so that helped hold it more securely still into the book. I will say it's probably not a picture I would have picked myself to colour, because having that many people in a picture is maybe a little bit intimidating, having to make sure all their hair and their skin and their clothes and everything, all the colours match together. But I think having a limited palette maybe helped with that, and it's worked out pretty well. Yeah, I think I'm going to keep on trying this random generator to give me pictures maybe I wouldn't choose myself to colour, magazines I haven't actually worked in yet maybe. So if you have enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Hope you've had fun following along. Take care, and I'll see you in future videos. Bye!